Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here, and today the city needs your help. The mayor has called on you to create a set of gorgeous parks to beautify the urban landscape. Now you'll be doing so with a pair of scissors that come in the box and a plan. You'll be using your snipping talents to clip a park full of dazzling, colorful features. ClipCut Parks is for 1 to 4 players, plays in 30 minutes, and is for ages 8 and up, published by Renegade Game Studios. Today we'll be doing a rule school where I'll show you how to set up and play the game so that you don't have to read the rulebook yourself. Now I placed timestamps below me in the description of this video just in case you want to jump to a specific section of the rules. Without further ado, let's get started. ClipCut Parks is a roll and cut game for 1 to 4 players where you're going to be cutting different pieces of this park out depending on what's rolled on the die. And as you cut pieces of the park out, you're going to be placing them on different parks. Some of them have no special requirements. Some of them have color requirements and need you to build in multiple places at the same time. And some spots have requirements like having an animal icon. When you complete a park, you'll be getting bonuses, like the gardener, which allows you to spend a token to ignore a requirement on a card. Or they might get you some bonus clippings that you can possibly even add to one of your parks now. And you have to be careful because if you cut out a piece that can't be placed on any of your parks, you must crumple it up, which possibly will make you lose a tiebreaker at the end of the game. You're trying to be the first to get 5 parks completed to win the game. It also has a Grand Parks variant, which has many more challenging ways to have to cut out pieces. And there's a solo mode that can also be played with the Grand Parks. I'm going to teach you how to set up and play the 2 to 4 player game. There'll be solo rules at the end of this video, but if you are playing solo, watch the entire video because most of the rules will be the same. Each player will take 1 set of scissors of the color of their choice. Then give each player 1 park sheet. Next, you're going to locate the park cards. There's 2 types of cards. The larger deck has a brown banner with yellow text, and the back sides of these have a blue back. Now there's 12 cards that are called Grand Park cards. They have a silver banner with white text, and they have more of a grayish background. You're going to take all 12 of these Grand Parks and remove them from the game. You only use this in a variant that I'll teach later. Then you're going to shuffle that deck up, and you're going to deal 5 cards to each player. 2 of them will be face up, and the other 3 will be face down in a draw pile for that player. Next, place the tokens in a supply where everyone can reach them. Finally, give the die to the player that's most recently visited a park, because they'll be the first player. The object of the game is to be the first player to finish all 5 of their parks. Now over the course of the game, you're going to be using these scissors to cut out different sections of your park sheet, placing them on cards, and trying to completely cover it and finish a card. The first one to do that for all 5 cards is going to be the winner. The game is played over multiple rounds until one player has finished all 5 parks, and each round goes through 5 different steps. The first step is to roll. The player that has the die will roll this, and then we'll see what comes up. Then everyone is going to cut. Now in the cut step, each player will simultaneously make as many cuts that's here and the exact distance of those. So here we see a 1, a 1, and a 2. This means each player is going to be simultaneously making 3 cuts on their own park sheet. Now each of the squares that are here essentially is a distance of 1, and we see a 1, 1, 2 here. So we can start cutting this. So you could do them in any order. So let's say we're going to cut the 2 first. So we'll come up here, and we will go just like this. Now notice this went 1, 2. Now you always have to go in a straight line when cutting. Also, now I cut right up to here, this 2. I could not then additionally make any other cuts in the same direction as I kept going, meaning you can't add these together. So I couldn't have gone 2 and then another 1 or another 1. You can't do that. Now I could do a 2 and then from where I stopped, go in a different direction with one of the other cuts. So in this case, we'll do one of the ones like this, and we'll do another one sort of like this. Then simultaneously, all players are going to build. Any of the pieces that came off, they can try to build in their park. Now we'll see that we have 2 parks. You can place it anywhere. You can rotate it any way. Now some of them might just need one space like this, and they have no other requirements, meaning it's just there's no colors, there's no symbols, and you could put something like this. But the one that we cut out was like this, and it was 2 of them. Now you'll see this little bridge or walkway here. This means that this has to be on the same piece, kind of like this, and this shows you that it has to be a yellow on that side. So I could not say place it like this because that needs a yellow, but we could place it like this. Now I also could have placed this on this park like this. Now you can never cover another piece. So for example, if this was here, I could not say go like this, for example, because it would be covering that. So let's say we place that piece just like that. Now before we talk about completing parks, let's talk a few more rules about cutting. Now, if we had rolled 2 3s, you actually have to cut all the way up to the full number. So in this case, you couldn't cut 1s or 2s, you have to cut exactly 2 3s. And when cutting, you can cut from the edge of any side of the sheet, or you can start from the end of any other clipping that's already been made. And also, if a piece comes out that you have cut, you cannot use any cuts to cut up these pieces any further. Now speaking of building, I've fast forwarded a few turns, now we have some more things filled in. I want to show you that sometimes cards can have these icons on them. And if it has it like an animal icon, you have to place a piece of the park that has that icon on them. So we could not just place a normal piece of the park there, we would actually have to put one on there like this that matches. So in this case, we have an empty that has no other requirements, and one that needs an animal here. So we could even do something like that. Same goes for this. This has this recycle. In this case, it has to be one that has a recycle. Now, before we talk about completing a card, let's say when you're building and you've just clipped and you're getting ready to build, you have this piece and you only have singles here and you cannot place this on any of your cards. If so, you actually crumple this up and you're going to keep it in front of you. This will be important for tiebreakers later. Now, when building, if you have completed one or more parks, you're going to take the completed parks and then you're going to separate this card, put it off to the side, but also get a bonus. In this case, we're going to get one additional cut that we can take immediately. And when putting this card off to the side, don't forget to leave all the clippings on as they are, because this could be a tiebreaker at the end of the game. Now, if you do get a bonus cut like that, when making this cut, if a piece falls out like this, you must either place it immediately on one of your parks or crumple it up. You're then going to take the top card from your draw deck and flip it face up so again you have 2 parks to work on. If this deck is empty, just skip this step. Sometimes when completing a park, you'll get one of these tokens. Now what these tokens allow you to do is ignore one of the requirements on the card. For example, here, this needs an animal. But if I want to place one that doesn't have one, I can take one of these tokens and discard it. Conversely, over here, this needs a recycle, and if I didn't, I could just flip this over and put this back in the supply and spend it and ignore that requirement. Now, some bonuses when you complete a card will give you the gardener token. Now, you can spend one of these when building to ignore a color requirement. For example, we could spend this. This one would need a red and another one connected. But in this case, we could do something like this. Instead of this being red, we could place it like that by discarding that gardener token. Now, if you're colorblind, there's a table on the inside of the rulebook that shows you for a specific color, it actually tells you what you'll see. For red, you'll always see tents. Blue, you'll always see water. For greenery, you'll always see trees. And for play areas, you'll always see people. Once everyone has checked if they have parks completed and have completed that step, the die will pass to the next player and you simply start another round. This will continue until a player has finished their 5th and final card. At the end of the round, that game is over and the player who did all 5 of their cards will win. If it's tied, the player who has the least crumpled up pieces will win. And if it's still tied, whoever has the single largest section on their cards will win. And if it's still tied, you share the victory. For a longer game, you could have a total of 7 parks. You'll have 2 face up like normal, and instead of having just 3 cards here, you'll have 5. If you want to have a bigger challenge, you can play with the Grand Parks variant. If you remember, these cards have the grayish back, and they have a gray banner with white text here. You're going to shuffle these cards up, and you're going to deal a certain amount of these to each player depending on the challenge that you'd like. You deal 1 for a charming challenge, 2 for a tricky part trial, and 3 for a supreme snip craze. Now, regardless of how many of these cards everyone was using, they always start face up. In this case, we decided to use 2. So those 2 are face up by default. Then, depending on how many you took, you'll make sure you have a total of 5 cards. So however many you have here, plus any amount of the normal cards will equal 5. In this case, we had 2, so we had 3 of the normal park cards. You're then going to make sure that you have the top card flipped over so that you have, in this case, 1 normal park card and 2 of the grand park cards, and we have 2 here. So you see we have a total of 5. Again, you always start with all of your grand parks, regardless of how many face up, and one of the regular cards face up, and the rest of them adding up to 5 cards will be face down. The rest of the game is played the same. In the solo game, you set up as normal, except you'll take the 30 total cards that are just the standard park cards. You'll shuffle them. You'll take the top 10 of these and you'll discard them out of the game. This will leave you with 20 cards. You'll then flip the top 2 of those up, face up in front of you. The rest of these cards become your draw pile. Now you're trying to complete as many park cards as you can before running out of cards of your deck. Now, before starting your turn and rolling the die, you're going to discard the top card into a discard pile off to the side. Now you keep playing as normal until you must discard a card from the draw pile, but it's empty, or you cannot make a cut that's required by a die. Now at the end of the game, you're going to get 3 points for each completed card. You're going to get 1 point for every token you have. You're going to get 1 point for each square of the largest piece that you have on any card. In this case, this is a piece of 3, so we had 3 points there. But you're going to get minus 1 point for every park card that you did not complete. This one has a missing piece here. And you're going to get minus 1 for each crumpled up piece in front of you. And you'll keep track of your score, share it online, and try to beat your high score next time. You can also play the solo game with the Grand Parks. In this case, you'll set up the deck as normal for the standard park cards, but you'll take all of the Grand Park cards and place it in the deck next to it. You're going to decide how many of these Grand Park cards to play with, 1, 2, or 3. Let's say we selected 2. Since we did select 2, we're going to take 2 cards off the top of the standard deck and remove it from the game. This means between these 2 cards, and you don't need these anymore, and these cards, you'll still have 20 cards just like the standard solo game. You'll also have 2 face-up cards of the standard cards as well, and you'll always have 2 of those face-up. So in this case, we're starting with 4 cards. Now, when you complete a Grand Park card, you get the bonus as normal, but you don't replace the card. However, if you did complete one of these, you would then replace that card as normal. Well, I hope this helped you dive right into ClipCut Parks and get to the fun quicker than you normally would if you had to read the rulebook yourself. Now, if you have any further questions about the rules, I've placed the link below me in the description of this video, and that's the best place to ask them, because not only will I be notified, but so will Renegade Game Studios.